The blizzard outside the cabin windows is a screaming, white void, a physical manifestation of the chaos I've been trying to suppress for the 2 years I've spent as Isabella Sterling's right hand. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of pine needles and the lingering, sharp fragrance of her sandalwood perfume, a scent that has become the oxygen of my existence, intoxicating and inescapable. We were supposed to be halfway to the mountain retreat for the annual board summit, but the black ice and the howling wind had other plans. Now the luxury SUV is a buried carcass at the bottom of a ravine, and we are huddled in this abandoned hunting lodge, a place that feels like it exists entirely outside of time and the rigid rules of corporate hierarchy. Isabella is standing by the frosted window, her back to me, the sharp silhouette of her tailored charcoal overcoat a dark stain against the blinding, aggressive white outside. She hasn't spoken a word since we dragged the emergency supplies from the wreck. The silence between us isn't empty, it's a suffocating living thing, filled with the ghost of every file I've ever handed her, every coffee I've brewed to her exacting standards, and every lingering glance I thought she didn't notice. I can hear the rhythmic, shallow sound of her breathing, a stark contrast to the roar of the gale. My own heart is a frantic bird trapped in my ribs, hammering away at the realization that for the first time, there is no mahogany desk between us, no ringing phones, and no schedules to maintain. There is only the biting cold and the terrifyingly beautiful woman who has ruled my life with an iron fist and an icy, detached gaze. I find myself staring at the nape of her neck, where a few stray blonde hairs have escaped her perfect chignon, a tiny human crack in her armor that makes my throat tighten with a sudden, sharp longing. The danger of our relationship has always been a theoretical thing, a threat of termination, a ruined reputation, but here, in the absolute isolation of the storm, the danger is much more primal. It's the terrifying realization that I don't want to be saved if it means going back to the way we were. I want the storm to last. I want the silence to break. I want to know if the woman who commands billions is as cold as the ice on the glass, or if there is a fire beneath the silk and the steel that could consume us both. Every minute that passes in this cabin feels like a transgression, a slow-motion fall into an abyss I've been staring into since the day I was hired. I can almost taste the sandalwood on my tongue, a bittersweet promise of a truth I'm finally brave enough to seek in the dark. Back at the Sterling Tower, Isabella is a ghost made of deadlines and high-end couture. Our daily routine is a masterclass in professional distance, a choreography of efficiency that leaves no room for the heart. I arrive at 6, her double espresso is on the desk by 6:15, and for the next 12 hours, I'm nothing more than an extension of her will. I've learned to read the subtext of her sighs, the way her jaw tightens when a donor talks too long, and the way her eyes flicker toward me for a microsecond of validation before she eviscerates a rival in the boardroom. We live in the unsaid. It's in the way she lets me adjust her collar before a press conference, her skin burning hot against my knuckles for the 3 seconds I'm allowed to touch her. It's in the way I stay until 10 because she's still there, and the thought of her being alone in that glass office is more than I can bear. We are bound by 1,000 invisible threads of duty and desire, a slow burn torture that has become the only thing I truly feel in this sterile world. She's a master of masking her passion behind a frost so thick it could shatter stone, yet I've spent every night for 700 days wondering what lies beneath that perfect, untouchable surface. In the office, she is a goddess of industry who doesn't bleed or want. But here, in the dim, flickering light of a single emergency candle, the routine is dead. I watch her as she finally turns from the window, her face pale, her icy blue eyes searching mine with a raw intensity that makes my knees weak. There is no one to watch us here. No cameras, no gossip, no legacy to protect. Just the two of us and the growing chill that makes the air feel like needles in our lungs. I see her gaze drop to my lips for a heartbeat before she recoils, the mask of the CEO snapping back into place, even if it's trembling at the edges. She tells me to start a fire with the few logs left in the hearth, her voice a low melodic rasp that feels like a caress and a command all at once. I obey because that's what I do, but as I crouch by the stone fireplace, my mind is a whirlwind of what-ifs. We are performing the same dance we do in the city, but the music has changed, turned into something darker and more desperate. I can feel her eyes on my back, a heavy, silent weight that tells me she is just as aware of this threshold as I am. Does she keep me so close because she needs me to function, or because she's just as terrified of the distance as I am? The fire catches, throwing long, dancing shadows across the room, and I realize that the light is only making it harder to hide what I'm feeling. If you are feeling the tension between them as much as I am, please leave a like and subscribe to Meeting Her. And tell me in the comments, which city are you watching this story from today? I'd love to know where our romance is traveling to. The fire is a pathetic, flickering thing, a dying ember that does little to push back the encroaching frost of the mountain night. The temperature in the lodge is dropping fast, and the wind is beginning to howl through the gaps in the logs like a dying animal. Isabella is huddled on the small, worn sofa, her arms wrapped tightly around herself, the ivory silk of her blouse looking thin and useless against the elements. I can see the shiver that racks her body, a violent tremor that she tries to hide by gritting her teeth. Professional protocol dictates that I should offer her my sweater and keep my distance, but the cold is a brutal, honest thing that cares nothing for titles or decorum. "You're freezing," I whisper, the sound of my voice startlingly loud in the small room. She looks at me, and for the first time in 2 years, the steel is gone. There is only a raw, naked vulnerability that makes my heart ache. "It's fine, Elena," she says, but her voice is a broken thread of its former self. I don't listen. I move toward her, the space between us closing like a wound. I sit beside her, the heat from my own body feeling like a sun compared to the chill of her skin. For a second, she tenses, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and something that looks dangerously like hope. Then, as the wind slams against the door with a force that makes the whole cabin shudder, she breaks. She leans into me, her head falling onto my shoulder, her fingers clutching at the wool of my sweater with a desperation that shatters the last of my restraint. The breaking point isn't a scream or a fight, it's the way she exhales my name against my neck, a soft, ragged sound that carries the weight of 2 years of suppressed longing. I wrap my arms around her, pulling her into my lap, our bodies molding together as if we were always meant to occupy the same space. The scent of her sandalwood is overwhelming now, mixing with the heat of our shared frantic breath. We are huddled on that small sofa, the fire dying into ash, but I have never felt more alive. I can feel the erratic rhythm of her heart against mine, a frantic, wild beat that tells me everything her silence couldn't. She pulls back just enough to look into my eyes, her face inches from mine, her lips parted and trembling in the dark. The proximity is a physical weight, a gravity that is pulling us into a collision I've dreamt of and dreaded in equal measure. In the half-light of the dying fire, she isn't the woman who owns the city, she is just a woman who wants to be held, and I am the only person in the world who can reach her. The ice has finally melted, and the flood that follows is more powerful than any storm outside. The morning sun is a blinding, cruel light, reflecting off the fresh snow with a brilliance that demands we return to our roles. The storm has passed, leaving a world that is quiet, pristine, and entirely different than the one we left behind. We are still on the sofa, tangled together in a way that would cause a scandal in any boardroom in the country. Isabella is awake, her head still resting on my chest, her eyes watching the light crawl across the floorboards. The intimacy of the night, the shared warmth, the whispered confessions that only the shadows heard, is still hanging in the air, but the reality of the Sterling Tower is already beginning to settle over us like a shroud. She sits up slowly, her movements stiff, and I watch as she begins to rebuild the wall, brick by ivory silk brick. She smooths her hair, adjusts her blazer, and looks at me with an expression that is once again unreadable. But as she reaches out to grab her leather bag, her fingers linger on the back of my hand for a single searing second. "It's not an accident. It's a mark." "We should find the road," she says, her voice back to its professional melodic rasp, but there is a new depth to it, a secret resonance that tells me she hasn't forgotten the way her heart beat against mine in the dark. The power dynamic has shifted forever. She knows I have seen her soul, and I know that she has felt my desire. We will go back to the city, we will take our places at the long mahogany tables, and we will pretend that we are just the CEO and her secretary. But the silence in the office will never be empty again. It will be a battlefield of what we know and what we must hide. As we step out into the freezing air, the rescue crews already visible in the distance, I realize that the most dangerous part of the storm wasn't the crash or the cold. It was the realization that I can never go back to being just a shadow in her light. I am a part of her now, a secret kept behind the glass and the steel, and I wonder how long we can play this game before the fire we started in that cabin burns the whole empire down. Every glance she gives me from now on will be a question, and every order she barks will be a lie. The game has changed, and the next time the lights go out, I won't be the one waiting to be saved. I will be the one holding the flame. This was only the beginning. If you missed the other stories on the channel, click on the video appearing on your screen right now. And get ready, because the next meeting will be even more intense. See you soon.